about other people, whether we like it or not. And tonight I have a special guest star, Grace Rockout. Thank you for joining me, Grace, on short notice. So I have a few questions I'd like to ask you to find out a little bit more about you. And I hear that you were born in Nebraska.
That's true. 61 years ago today, I was born in York, Nebraska. For a long time I thought it was New York, Nebraska. I told everyone I was from New York, and it was very sad to find out it was an even newer York and not the big city at all.
So what was it like growing up in Nebraska? Was there a lot of corn?
Yes, absolutely. I grew up on a farm, and we had corn and milo and cows and pigs and alfalfa and a lot of wide open spaces and not very many people, so I didn't have anyone to play with except the corn stalks, and so they were my friends.
Oh, well, that sounds exciting. Now I hear that you went and graduated from the University in Nebraska. What did you study there?
My major started out in engineering, oddly enough, chemical engineering. And I was really interested to become an engineer. I thought this would be a terrific thing to do. And then I realized that if I was going to do this, I would have to suffer through these classes with 499 men and me. And I think there were many women who were up to that. I was not. And so I looked in the class, the catalog. So what is the major you can get for the least amount of hours that they require you to take? In other words, you need the hours, but you get to pick what's the major that gives you the most freedom. And I figured it out mathematically. I guess that was the engineer in me. And I discovered it was philosophy. And so I majored in philosophy.
So that sounds quite a bit of difference between engineering and philosophy.
Well, yeah, I turned it completely upside down, and I took art classes, I took poetry classes, writing classes, everything I could, and many philosophy classes. I was really interested in philosophy. Very tough subject. Yes. My favorite part of philosophy was logic, which of course is mathematics again.
So it gave you an opportunity to use both your right and your left side of your brain. I
tried, yeah.
And so you left Nebraska in 1973. Now, why did you leave Nebraska?
Well, they have winter there. And I decided that there was a road between here and California, and if I could make it that far when I got to Southern California, I would not have to deal with snow. I did, and I made it. My car, it was a Volkswagen Squareback. It was not as well engineered as some Volkswagens were, but it got me over the Rocky Mountains. I made it to Santa Barbara. I said, this is my home, and I've never had to shovel snow since.
So you've been in Santa Barbara since 1973 then?
That's right.
And we've recently known that you married a man named Ron Gilbo.
That's correct.
How did you meet Ron?
It was over pizza. I had some friends who invited me over to their house for pizza one night. It was homemade pizza. And Ron was there. And he was wearing shorts. And he had really nice looking legs. And he was a little bit younger than I was. And I thought, well, maybe I shouldn't be interested. But turns out he was interested too, and 31 years later, we're still together. Or even more than 31 years. So we'll be married 31 years this July, but we knew each other a little bit before we got married.
So you would consider yourself a leg lady then?
I guess so.
Now I hear also that you are a freelance editor. How did you get involved in editing?
Well, it had a lot to do with how I got tired of hauling freight around. And when I say hauling freight around, I was a manager of a warehouse, and I loaded and unloaded many trucks back in my 30s. And at some point I decided, this is too hard. I can't be doing this until I'm 80, 90, 100 years old. I'm going to have to find something besides my body. So I thought, what's the complete opposite of freight handling? And I thought, what if I was a writer? So I took writing classes, and through writing, I came to editing.
Okay, so where did you take these writing classes?
I took a lot of them at Santa Barbara Adult Education, and I also attended the Santa Barbara Writers Conference for many years, and I'm still involved with the Santa Barbara Writers Conference. In fact, the conference starts on the 18th of June, and so we're working, getting it ready to go now, and I'm helping with getting that all set up and going. It's very, very exciting.
That sounds like a great opportunity for new writers. So I also hear that people that are good at editing and writing are also voracious readers. Are you a big reader?
Yes, and I recently heard Christine talk about how she couldn't wait to get her hands on books when she was a kid, and any money she got she put toward books. Well, I was greatly saved by the Weekly Reader Book Club, and we could buy books at school for about a quarter apiece. And I spent every bit of money I could get my hands on books. And I figured if I didn't read a book a day when I was a kid, something was wrong. So I read everything in the library. I read everything I could buy. And I read everything I could borrow. So I read a lot of books in my life.
Well, that's great. Well, thank you very much for joining us on this short notice. And thank you for sharing your life with us on Jim TV.
It was my pleasure. Very enjoyable show.